Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of CI Realty's Business Mastery. Today, we're going to be discussing handling buyer objections. First, I'd like to introduce you to my special guest. Today, we have Côté. Ray's a CIR realtor, and he's been a realtor for over 28 years now. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Todd.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I guess I should introduce myself too. My name's Todd Skoby, a realtor also with CIR. And as hopefully you've seen my face around, and we're going to be chatting today about handling buyer objections, and I'm really excited for this. We've had some good side chats, Ray, and I think between the two of us, we've got a lot of valuable information to share on this topic. So yeah, hopefully everyone will appreciate what we have to say. Let's get started. Buyer objection handling. Any objection. So you could use these tools for working with buyers, working with sellers. When we hear buyer objections, I truly believe what it is just the buyer doesn't have all the information that they need yet. Would you agree, Ray?
Yeah, I think two things. They don't have all the information that they need, and I think everybody wants to know who they're going to work with, that they feel comfortable with and they can trust.
Right.
And, I think probably, I would err sometimes on the fact of, or on the side of trying to get the trust first, or let the client get comfortable and build that relationship before I get them into signing any contracts. So, yeah, that's for me the biggest step to overcome, is that trust, because it is going to take time no matter who you're with.
Right.
To get that trust. I think I have to add a note in there is I do get a lot of, referrals, let's say, after this length in the business. So I'm not meeting with a lot of clients who don't know anything about me. Usually they're coming from either a friend or a past client, or they are a past client and I already know them. So it's pretty easy to get their trust coming from a warm call as opposed to a cold call sometimes.
So when we talk about buyer brokerage contracts, exclusive and non-exclusive, certainly I would agree. When you're working with someone that you've worked with in the past or a referral to you, it is by far easier to get them to sign a brokerage agreement. You're already past the know, like, and trust factor. They've already met you or they've been referred to you, which means to them they already trust you because the person that you worked with before trusts you also, right? So,
good point. So, some people more than others. Some people for sure come in and they still want to, regardless of who the referral came from, they want to check you out and see how comfortable they are with you and make their own mind up. So they're always kind of on display.
Yeah, I always use I say you end up dating somebody first, right? You going to the property, kind of you date each other for a little bit to see if you want to work with each other first, right?
Yeah.
And, working with a seller feels like more marriage, but certainly you're dating buyers. So 3 things that I think we need to do when we have any objection, we need to first validate that concern. So what is it about X that you are comfortable with? And then you need to clarify it. So what is it about this that you don't like? And then let me show you. So you have to educate them. Well, let me show you what this looks like, right? So validate it. I can totally appreciate you're not comfortable signing a buyer brokerage agreement. Well, let me show you what that looks like, right? So that way you're addressing it. You're not just trying to put it under the rug. You want all these concerns out in the open. And if you can tackle those head on, I find in my business, you can certainly move past those objections. And once you've got that objection, say anything else. What is there anything else that's of concern? Because we might as well write those down now, and let's cover those as we go instead of hoping they forget about them later. This way, you can truly earn their trust, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. Good to find out their concerns right away. I make sure they know, that it's just not an option. It's not our choice. We're obligated to have them sign a buyer contract, whichever one it is that we use. But, it's imposed on us by the society. So, they're gonna have to sign one in order to buy a house through.
Yeah. You jump into the first question, right? And that's, the whole objection is I don't want to sign a buyer brokerage agreement. And, the initial answer is just that, well, it's mandatory for everyone to sign one in the province of Alberta, right? Is there anything else you say to that?
Not really. I think, just making sure that they're aware, that I'm going to be working for them in their best interest. You don't get too many questions anymore about people asking, that you're getting paid. We don't pay you, but are you working for the seller? We used to get that a lot, but somehow I think the public understands now that we're paid by the seller typically, but we're working for the buyer. So I don't think it's too. Maybe the forums have done a better job of making sure they're aware of that, but for the most part, I don't find too much trouble having to explain that to anybody.
Okay, and let me ask you this. Having this conversation with someone about having them sign exclusive or non-exclusive buyer broker agreement, where are you having this conversation? Is it a phone call? Is it at the office?
Oh, that's a really good question. It depends. Some people phone you up and something's happened, or they've seen a house and they want to get out and go see some properties before you've had a chance to sit down and meet with them. So kind of gotta maybe do something, make sure they're aware of what's going on over the phone or, an email or something before meeting them. Ideally, I love to sit down for a coffee with my buyer clients first and foremost. We just go over things, try to ease into a conversation. Ideally, I would have the contracts that I want, that they're going to have to sign. I'm going to have them with me and I'm going to hand them to them and go over the contracts with them, but not have them sign them. I typically don't have my clients sign first day in the contracts. I like them to have the contracts, and then I want to get out with them and meet them and establish some rapport. Make sure that they're confident, or they seem like they're going to be confident working with me. I don't want anybody to be working with me if they're second guessing all the time themselves and me as well. It hasn't happened that often that clients have backed away or not wanted to work together anymore. But it's happened quite often that you work together for a while and things either we can't find them the right property or they change their mind or something. But not too often that overall it's just a personality clash, let's say, that doesn't work. Not too often.
You've excuse me, being in the business for so long, you've been working with buyers before buyer brokerage agreements were even a thing, right? So you had to go off of the trust and loyalty of that client. And, it sounds like you still do that, but obviously you get your agreement signed, but people just want to work with you because you're a great agent and you don't ever worry about them kind of wandering off and finding somebody else. Because that's never happened. Is that fair?
I would say
for the most part.
For the most part, I would say that's fair.
Right.
I think occasionally it happens. Sometimes somebody strays off and goes and works with somebody else, or goes and sees a listing and gets talked into writing it before before being able to check back with me or something. But I don't remember too many over the duration of my time in real estate that's happened. So I don't worry about it, to be honest with you. I really feel that if I can get them, get their confidence, get their trust, that things are going to work out. And that is the way I go into pretty much every relationship with the buyers.
Yeah, you and I were talking how you use the non-exclusive agreement, and we're going to flip it and talk about the exclusive that I use and certainly recommend using for a few reasons. It certainly does commit that buyer to you specifically, right? So if you structure the agreement to have very specific things like single-family homes in Calgary and surrounding area, that doesn't limit it to say condos or detached homes. So it protects you on all types of properties. When someone says, I don't want to sign an exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, really have to listen to what that objection is, right? So again, validate. I can totally appreciate that and clarify, what is it about the exclusive buyer brokerage that you're not comfortable with? Excuse me. And they may say, we don't want to be locked into one realtor. We just met you. We don't know anything about you. Well, as I said, we can date. So we could sign an exclusive buyer brokerage for 2 days. We can sign it for 2 weeks, which was better. I'd love to see 6 months, but why don't we sign it for 2 weeks? Let's go date for a bit. I'll show you some properties and you can see how I work and we can see if we're to work with each other. The other advantage of the buyer brokerage is it does speak to what I owe you. It speaks to what my duties are to you, but it also speaks to what you owe me. So we have a really good understanding of what our relationship looks like for each other. Certainly talks on commissions as well in that, and we'll get to that a bit later, but it does kind of get that conversation out of the way also if we talk about the commission ahead of time. So we sign an exclusive listing agreement when we sell somebody's house. So now, we turn around and do an exclusive buyer representation agreement. What that does is it does protect you, both parties, as you move forward throughout the whole transaction. Right? Different ways of looking at it.
No, I agree. I think it is really valuable, that exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. Somehow I just have always used the non-exclusive and I'm very comfortable just using those. I'm not counseling anybody that that's all you should do. But somehow it's kind of been my comfort zone that I've used them, and I do state up front, that if there is a client that's not offering, a full commission, that I'm going to try to get full commission, by putting it in the purchase contract. And I want my buyers to know that right away, but I'm not going to ask them to pay my commission.
Okay.
From what I recall, it's happened to me once that, I got burned on it. Got maybe a half a commission as opposed to what would be considered full one.
Perfect segue. That's actually the next objection we were going to discuss, right? Was I don't want to pay out of my own pocket. I don't want to pay you out of my own pocket.
Yeah.
That's obviously a lot of first-time buyers in general. They don't realize who pays us, right? Even with mortgage brokers, they don't understand a mortgage broker gets paid by a lender or a realtor gets paid by the seller. They don't know that. So it's up to us to educate the client and let them understand that. So what happens when someone says to you, I don't want to pay you out of my own pocket?
I think it's a fair question. In my case, using the non-exclusive contracts, I just tell them that basically they're not going to be paying me, but the commissions are really built into the price of the sale, on the property. So the contracts I use are the non-exclusive ones. But again, if there was, say, a 1%, 2% real estate company listing, and you wanted to try to get your 3.5, 1.5, I tell them up front that I'm going to look after trying to get that for myself. That's going to be negotiating that on behalf of myself, so they don't have to sign the exclusive, and I feel I can do that. But I usually need their backing. If the seller's saying, we're not paying you that, and my client says, well, we're not going ahead with the deal unless you're signing, you're not taking that term out. I need their backing on that. And outside of one case that I can recall, my clients have always backed me up.
That's amazing. So you're saying your clients are so invested in Côté that they're prepared to move on from that property if the seller's not willing to pay you?
Well, I think, it's a good question, to be honest, because from what I recall is typically the sellers, always agree, except for the one case.
Okay.
The one case was, I think it was like a $399 list price. I had been working with buyers for 3 or 4 weeks. They really narrowed down what they wanted. Listing came up first day on with 2% Realty. So they're offering buyer side 1%. It was going to sell first, second day on the market. So we wrote right away full price. There was no way I could negotiate a full commission. I tried to, and the seller said, forget it. I didn't expect the buyers to back me up on that one. That's the only one that comes to mind, that it didn't. Maybe the buyers ended up paying more, a little bit more than they thought they would have had the commission not been adjusted, but they were fine with that. So it would have been the same had they signed the exclusive and had to pay me. So it was just negotiated into the contract. And,
Nice.
Therefore, I actually don't know how it works if it goes on your, into the sales price, or if you just have to pay that out of your pocket.
Yeah. Well, if the seller, excuse me, if the buyer had to pay it, then that comes out of the buyer's pocket, right? And that's structured at closing anyways through lawyers. But there have to be that fee agreement set up with the buyer so they can understand that they have to pay that additional fee. Right? And just because it's worked into that buyer brokerage exclusive doesn't mean your buyer has to top up if it's light on that fee. The whole fee structure in the buyer brokerage, exclusive buyer brokerage says, I expect X. So my business, not in everybody's business. Let's say I put in there 3.5, 1.5. We can't set that fee, but that's what I charge. So I've got it in 3.5, 1.5. But I can go down and explain the rest of that. And it says, if the fee offered by the seller is less than 3.5, 1.5, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I would expect you to top that up, or you give me permission to go to the seller and ask them to top it up. And if they can do that, that's wonderful. And if you look down even further, it says, if the fee is greater than 3.5, 1.5, then Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I give that back to you. Well, I've been fortunate enough to be in that position where I had a 3.5, 1.5, and I sold my buyers a property that was 4.5, 1.5. So I was able to get them a check through CIR for $1,000 after the deal closed, because I just want to work for what we've agreed to, right? It's just like going to work for Monday to Friday, and you expect to get paid X that week, and if it's less, we don't like that. And I'm saying if it's more, I'll give that back to you because I just want that amount that we've agreed upon.
Right.
So there are some great things in there that you can explain that right out in the open, how, if it's anything more than that. And I think I mentioned that with that $1,000. When I mentioned that to my buyers, they actually said, well, why don't we split it? And I said, well, no, that's exactly why we're not splitting it. It's because you're willing to split it. Like, there were such great clients that they were willing to go halves with me, and it felt amazing to be able to give them that check back. So I only want to work for what I expect, no more, no less, right? So
yeah, be fair, right? Yeah, be fair with most people. They're fair right back.
Totally agree. That's right. Well, let's move on then. Let's say a buyer says to you, prices will go down, and I want to wait until the market hits the bottom. What do you say to that?
That's a loaded question right now with what's going on out there. I have had that happen probably twice recently, and so the first client, I just said, if you want to see some homes and make sure where in the market, what the values are in the market right now, and keep track of them going forward. We just go out and see them whenever you want. I said, you call me. I said, I absolutely understand your concern, because it sure seems, like there's nowhere but down for the prices to go for the next little while. But I don't know that. Every single time that I think I've got everything figured out in the market, something changes, and then the market changes. So, like right now, you can get an interest rate, 1.99 or 1.95% for 5-year money. There's a lot of buyers taking advantage of that. They don't care that prices might go down a little bit more, or thinking that they will. They're locked into a great rate. They've got really good selection, and I think are willing to jump in. So the buyer that I was working with, we were looking at homes. We probably saw 20, 25 homes, and one came up that was perfect for him, seemed priced really well. And instead of waiting, he just bought it. He was renting, and he said he was really tired of renting. He couldn't, wait to get in and make a home. And thought he got a good enough deal on this one that it was okay.
Nice.
So, nobody ever times it. Well, some people time it right, hitting the bottom of the market, but they're not the ones who plan to. They're just, you never know when the bottom's going to be there. And once it starts going back up, sometimes the inventory is not that great.
Right.
So
well, that's how we know when we hit the bottom, right? Is when it starts going back up, and then we can see it. Yeah, I got that text a couple weeks ago from a friend, and all the text said was, have we hit the bottom of the real estate yet? prices? And such a loaded question, right? And you just answered that, but you can't. Nobody knows the bottom until it starts going up, and interest rates, like you said, money is so cheap right now that there's more to it than price. There's lifestyle we have to consider. People have to move up or move down, and price isn't always the biggest factor when looking at a move. Lifestyle is huge, right?
It is. Oh, it for sure is. And there's about 3 or 4 different markets out there. Like under 500,000 right now is, the market's been coming down for 6 years consecutively.
Right.
So under 500 seems like a really good market, a really busy market.
Yeah.
There you go. Like the slower it is, you're going to have a $900,000 listing and not have it showing for 3 months.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen up there? I have no idea. And I'm not pretending to know. It's just like, I can tell you what's going on, but I can't tell you what's going to happen.
And being able to say that to a buyer is priceless, because they see that you're being genuine, right? You're not trying to tell them that everything is amazing and there's nothing wrong. The market's so up and down right now that it's hard to predict it. Then I'd argue there are micro markets within the city of Calgary, right? There's always markets that are always good to work in. Like if someone asked you, how's the market in Lake Bonavista? Vista? Well, we know it's always good. Right? Yeah, always. So, and then those right now, the high 3s, low 4s are just selling like hotcakes. Yeah. There is a very real question: have we hit the bottom, and how's the market? Well, it depends on the micro market we're talking, and let's talk more about that, right? So that's how that conversation would go.
Yeah, and I usually put it over to the economy too, and I'll say, I don't know what's going to happen with the economy, and in Calgary, our housing market, it doesn't only go with the economy, it kind of just goes with the oil patch. So hopefully somewhere down the road, there's a little more to our economy than just oil and gas, but for the near future, it doesn't seem like it. So, as the oil and gas market goes, so goes our housing market.
And what I'm hearing from you, and I know this about you, is you're very low pressure or no pressure. Just to be able to educate someone and say the market's really great right now and the interest rates are low, you'll probably never say you have to buy right now, because it's always up to the buyer and their comfort level, right? We educate, we let them know all the facts and what we know and the trends and what we see happening. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's on our client to either make that decision to do something now or later, right?
Yeah, that's kind of my goal, Todd, overall is I would like working with a buyer or seller client that I can guide them along, I can steer them in the right direction, I can give them as much information as they need to make a good decision for themselves, and make sure that I'm here to answer any questions they have. And ultimately it's their decision going forward if they're going to buy something or if they're going to sell at a certain price. That's their decision, but I want to be the one informing them as best as I can on what the current conditions are, what the market is like right now, and just make sure that they get the knowledge that I have to pass on to them and help them to make a good decision.
Nice. That's all we can ever do, right? Is provide the information. Never our decision, anyways. We're the agent where we provide information and we act in our client's best interest and follow that fiduciary duty of obedience, and whatever you want to do, as long as it's lawful, we have to follow that, right? You can't make anybody do anything again. So this question doesn't certainly apply to you, but we're going to talk about it, and maybe let's brainstorm, have some ideas as to what that answer could be. It's for the newer agents. So if someone were to say to a new agent, you're a new agent, and we don't know if you're qualified for the job. So that's a scenario where you're fresh to the industry and people know you and they want to work with you, but they're hesitant because you're brand new, right? So how do you think, if you can rewind 28 years, how would you think you could answer that, or what advice would you give to a new agent if that's the question they're getting?
I think I would have to say, first of all, not to shy away from saying, you're right. You definitely got good reason to wonder if I'm fully qualified to guide you along here. I'm new in the business, and you're trusting me to give you advice or help you to make a really good decision on something that I don't have a lot of experience in. So, I honestly believe that sometimes you end up with a buyer client and you're just going to go out and start showing properties. So you don't really need a whole lot of guidance other than getting started and you're out showing. But once it kind of comes time to making some decisions on areas and values, I honestly believe that there's a really important part to play, I think, for some counsel from somebody who's been in the business for a while. You can be in the business for 1 or 2 years and have a lot of experience because the market is always changing. So if you're out there every day showing, you probably know the market better than somebody like me who's been in it for 28 years, but maybe isn't out there every day showing. That market is changing all the time. So even somebody who's been in the business a few years, if they're active and they're out there really working hard, you're going to get some good advice from these people. So just to grab somebody kind of as a mentor, the mentorship groups, I think, have been really great at CIR. I used to be part of one, and I really enjoyed meeting, with the group that I had, and I learned as much from it as anybody else that was in the group. But having, one person who's got a little bit of experience in there to help you along. I went, when I was starting, I guess to answer your question correctly, my first deal in real estate, I brought another realtor with me, Eleanor. And that's, I would be guessing Eleanor's last name. I'm afraid I can't pick it out of the air here. I should have researched it a little more. But Eleanor helped me with my first purchase. She came around and worked with my client and I for a couple of days, 3 days. They were out-of-town clients. And, split a commission with her, but felt that I was looking after my client and had another lady in the office I worked with routinely when I was starting out in real estate. 20 years ago, it was a different story because we all worked out of the office. You always had 70, 80 people in an office. So you always had someone around you that you could go and talk to, or you could ask questions to, or you could ask to come out, with you. It's harder. It's much harder today. Never mind COVID-19, but everybody's, working out of their house anyways, for the most part, in real estate, and you don't have a chance to, brainstorm and, throw ideas around and question people about this and that. So I'm a big fan of if you're starting out and you can tap into somebody else, their knowledge base, help them guide you along at the start. It's a positive.
So are you saying that you're offering your services as experience, right? I'm kidding. Don't answer that.
I would. I mean, if somebody wanted me to go out with them with their buyer client, absolutely I would. I mean, I think, I'm not going to say I'm going to do it, for free. I would expect that if I worked with another agent that we would have some kind of a setup for a commission split or something. But having said that, I find there's a lot of work in the business right now, especially with the way things are with COVID-19. There's hard to get free time. So I'm sure somebody else would probably be a better bet than myself. I probably wouldn't be free that often. Having said that, I just think, look after your clients at the start. You're a new agent. You get 4 or 5 new clients, and they're all happy because you did a deal. You brought in, another agent that helped you out, and everything went smoothly. Now these 4 or 5 first clients are going to start referring you out, and it doesn't take very long, to get confident out there. If you're working hard, and you're learning the market, it doesn't take that long.
Let's go back to the initial part of that topic was, you're new and we're not sure if you're the right person for the job. Well, could we lean on CIR? We could say, well, yeah, I'm new to the industry, but maybe you're not new to sales. Maybe you're not new to business. Your past careers, you can tap into whatever that was. Maybe you have an in-depth knowledge of customer experience. Like maybe you've got a huge background somewhere that you can apply those principles and learnings into real estate and be able to speak on saying CIR's got this tremendous support where we have our managers on Quick Connect who answer their calls and Quick Connect quite quickly, and the training we have at CIR and the practicum class that I teach, like that's such a huge thing for agents, and not only new agents, but experienced agents take that class. But we've got so much support in the professional development side at CIR that, yes, I can appreciate that I'm a new agent. However, I've got this giant team behind me, right? So we can speak on our management team, and we can speak on, I've got a team of lawyers and mortgage brokers and not just me. I have this team of professionals that support me, and we can all work together to ensure that you have a great buying experience.
Yeah.
And then you can say, is there anything else, right? I like to put that out there. Say, have I answered that? How do you feel about that now? Anything else? So let's get them all out there. Let's air everything out, and then let's proceed. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I should kind of go back and restate that I don't think that every time that a new agent works with a buyer, you need another realtor to work with you. Only if you feel, that maybe you're looking at a price category that you're not familiar with, let's say, or if you sense that the buyer is not comfortable and that it would bring a lot of comfort and trust to bring somebody with a little bit of experience in to help you out. I think a lot of times, you start working with a buyer and you get to know the market really well. They see everything that's out there. They see a bunch of listings that are active that go sold, so they know what they sold for. You get to learn the market with them. And I think a lot of the time, as long as you take your time with them, that you will learn that market with them, and they will learn to trust you, even when you're new. You don't get a whole lot of really experienced agents that want to show a lot of homes, to be quite honest. A lot of, it takes a lot more time working with a buyer than it does when you set up the listing and you monitor it and you work in those listings. I find a lot of the buying is coming from younger realtors. They got the energy to get out there. Quite honestly, it takes some energy to get out there and move around. It really does. So I think that having the enthusiasm and the energy on your side, making sure the buyer knows that you're gonna do whatever it takes to make sure they've seen all the homes they need to make a good decision. I think that's the side.
Perfect. Now let's paint a picture. We're in an open house, sitting in an open house as a buying agent, and people walk in and you start a good conversation, and you're chatting, you're getting along well, and they say to you, we just started to look. We're just starting to look at houses. Right? So you just met them and they say that, and you're saying, would you be interested in working together? And they say, well, we just started to look. What's a good response on that?
Well, I guess first question, I hope I'm not jumping the next question down the road here, but, would be what position are you in? Are you renting, or do you own a home, or what position are you coming from? Have you bought before? Is it all new, or, where are you at? Because if you've got a home to sell first, or you've got a house that you have to sell, somehow you're going to have to coordinate that. And, especially in today's market, that's not easy. And you absolutely want to make sure that you either get your place sold first, or that you look around for a while, make sure there's something out there you're going to be comfortable buying, and then you put your place up. But you want to make sure you get your house sold before you buy another one, so you're not owning two properties with a market that we don't know what it's going to do.
Definitely. So now, I say that, we're just looking and we have something to sell. Well, that to me, and we start talking about listening for change, that's a huge opportunity to potentially have two ends with that one client, right? Because now we're talking, they do want to buy because they're in our open house, but they have to sell first. So we need to open that conversation and talk about offering a CMA, an analysis on that property, and, ask them to invite you over to have a look at their house and see what that looks like, and let them know one of the services you offer is you can do an analysis for them, and we can give you information and let you know what your house is worth. And what you can do with that information is take it to your bank or mortgage broker and let them know what we think is the sale price of that property, and they can apply that to get them pre-qualified for the purchase. So then we can help them, just educating them, getting numbers together, letting them know what they can sell for, and then by having that number, they can find out where their price range could be to help them buy. Right. So we've done a couple things here. We've heard that they want to buy, but we also heard they have to sell most likely. So we need to get them in touch with a broker to find out if that's first of all the case, or whether or not that's what they want. Because not everybody is comfortable holding that stress of buying first, selling second. So we could advise them to sell first, get a nice, comfortable possession date, and then let's go shopping. But we can't do any of that without knowing what the house is worth and what interest rate they can qualify for, and the whole debt service ratios, all that fun stuff. But just by simply listening for that change could potentially turn into 2 transactions, right? And quickly switch gears from working with a buyer to working with a seller first, and then transitioning into them as a buyer.
Yeah, right? Well, I think, a couple of things on that. First of all is, it probably is the biggest mistake in real estate to start working with a buyer that you don't know as well, or you don't know them well, who's not qualified.
Right.
I have done it a few times, and typically it's backfired, regularly. So if they can't make the effort to get pre-qualified and make sure they know what they can buy, because some people buy a truck, let's say, and they're not even aware that brings down their qualification. It's like, you just bought a truck, like you were going to look and you didn't have a truck, and now you got a new truck. Like, you better get qualified again.
Yeah, let's
right. Yeah. They gotta make sure they owe that to me. I think they owe that to us as realtors. People are gonna give them our time and work hard for them to get pre-qualified and make sure we know what we're dealing with. It happens regularly too. People forgot about they have some negative on their credit that they haven't got rid of yet, and they need to go a little bit longer paying their bills before their credit gets to where it needs to be to qualify again. So that is step number 1 for sure. I think we have like little teams, within whatever other team we work for. We work 2 or 3 realtors we work with. That mortgage broker or banker is a really important part of your team. Home inspectors are a really important part of your team. But I want to have on speed dial, 1 mortgage broker and 1 banker, because I want to be able to be in touch with them right away, first day, and then go from there. So, on the other side of it, with the listing side on their property, getting comfortable, getting in their home, having a look around. You also get an idea of what kind of property they like. And there have been markets in the past where you almost had to buy before you sold, because if you sold your place and you couldn't find a place, the market kept going up and you weren't in the market. So, it's been 6 years since we've had to worry about that. But 2014 was a pretty busy year. And in 2014, that happened regularly where, a lot of people, I would say almost everybody's aware of the real estate market right now. So I don't think you're going to find too many people who would think about buying before they sell in this market. But that could be a fatal error for sure.
Yeah, I agree. One last point on that. I agree with getting in touch with the bank broker, finding out. I would argue, how can you show property to somebody if you don't know what they can afford to buy for?
You shouldn't, right? You shouldn't. It's not even fair to the owners of the property that, especially in COVID-19 time, where you might be showing somebody who's not qualified property, bringing people to their house that might have some virus and they can't even qualify to buy it. It absolutely doesn't make sense.
Certainly agree with the safety. The other point would be you'd be setting the bar too high, right? So if they say we should be okay to 900,000, and then they turn around and find out numerous things, their debt's high and stress test, the whole thing, they can only qualify to 600,000. Now they've got $900,000 type properties in their head, and they have to readjust that thinking down to 600,000, and that's a really hard thing to do to have someone wrap their head around. The bar is set way too high, and it can never be correct. And then say, well, I don't want to have your expectations set too high on something that you can't even afford. So let's get you pre-approved now and find out what you can qualify for
Yeah, I think those initial meetings set they set the tone for everything, right? Like just, don't be optimistic, be real, be honest, and be fair.
Okay, so one last point I want to talk about, because we already hit the other ones. You're chatting with someone and they say, "But Ray, let's back up. We don't want a pushy salesperson." What's that response look like for you?
I think each one of us will probably have to answer that, just the way we are, answer the way we would handle it. And typically I tell, any clients who would be worried about that, let's say, that my whole goal in real estate is that I want my clients, to be long-term clients. I don't want them just for one deal. I want to help them buy and sell in real estate, and I want to do the best job I can for them. And for me, that means that I'm going to help educate them on the markets, allow them to get to know the markets, to feel that they are very confident to make a decision in this market that they think is good, not just looking to me for what I think, but if I'm doing my job properly, guiding them along with comparables, and we're working with buyers, obviously, showing them some of the homes that we've seen, what they've sold for. Those are some of the best checks and balances you can have for what values are out there. Make sure they're aware of that, that they're going to know the market when it comes time. So I don't feel I ever have to push somebody. I don't remember the last time I had to tell somebody, "Hey, you better offer on this today because it could be gone tomorrow." It's like they're usually saying, "This is really good. This is probably going to sell right away, right?" And I'll be like, "It sure seems good." I mean, I can't say for sure, but if you guys really like this, most often, if you think it's the best one on the market, you're not alone.
Yeah.
That's about as pushy, I think, as I get.
And I think that's just educating, right? You mentioned that word guide. You guide your clients. Then we're big on ninja installation here at CIR, and how, we don't sell anybody, right? We help people. We help them and we guide them, like you said, through the whole transaction. And if you do that successfully, you don't have to sell anything, right? You're just helping people achieve their goals. You're buying and selling. And we don't have to decide those things for them. We just give them information and they make the decisions, right? It's not ours to make. You can't say to somebody, "You have to buy this house today because it's going to sell tomorrow." You can educate them on the market and the conditions. And like you said, this is a hot property. It just came on the market. It may not be here tomorrow. What would you like to do? And stop talking, right? There's a lot of power in silence, right? Speak your piece and then just stop talking. And listen and let them say something, and they'll guide you. And if it's their decision to think about it overnight and you said you may lose it, well, that's on them, right? But as long as you've given them the information and the tools they need, that's as far as we can go, and that's where we need to be.
It is. That is where we need to be. I just I don't know another way to do it other than to help them make the best decision they can, but it is their decision.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you've obviously been doing something right to be a successful agent for the past 28 years. You're continually a top producer at CIR, and you've been amazing to talk to. Thank you so much for sitting with me today, Ray. It's been awesome.
I've enjoyed it, Todd. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay.
Don't forget, everyone, to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to CIR Realty Business Mastery. We also have podcasts there. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great weekend, and happy selling, everybody. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Todd.